From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief technologist at Stunning Digital Marketing. Today I have my guest, Miss Elizabeth Eiss, and Elizabeth and I are going to talk about how to supercharge your small or medium-sized business. This is one episode you don't want to miss. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by All-in-One WP Migration, the most trusted WordPress migration plugin with over 60 million sites served. Whether you are switching hosts, changing domains, or moving to a new server, All-in-One WP Migration makes it one click. Try it for free at wordpress.org or visit servemass.com for pro features. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I have my guest, Miss Elizabeth Eiss. Hey Elizabeth, how you doing today?
I am good. How are you today, Rob?
Doing good. I was just saying to you before we went to record, I think spring has finally arrived in the Greater Toronto area because it's gorgeous out there this morning.
Wow.
So
Well, it's
it's
been a
about time.
bit chilly the last couple of days, but the flowers are up, the magnolias are blooming. It's just, the sun's out. You can't complain.
A Magnolia reference, and if you want more of those, I gotta do at time of this record is go watch the Masters because
Ah, that's true.
Magnolia Lane.
Absolutely. This
Yes.
this weekend.
That is this weekend. Today we thought we'd talk about how to supercharge or increase your business if you're a small entrepreneur or a sole entrepreneur or small business. Both have many, many, many problems being there. I've been there myself. I'm sure you've been there. We've both been there. So we have a lot on our own and working with clients. How did you get into this crazy space?
Well, it's an interesting story. It wasn't by design necessarily,
Okay.
but I spent years running very large businesses in the commercial insurance industry. And to make a long story short, 24 years ago, I up and joined my first tech startup, and that did not
Mm,
survive. But at the end of that time, I decided I didn't want to go back to work for a big company. And I will say I discovered entrepreneurship, and I was
mhm,
doing some consulting during that time. And while I have a really broad background, because I used to, literally run large departments, large businesses, I have a really broad skill set, but I discovered, and this was like 15 years ago, I would discovered that to round myself out for a given project, I would hire a freelancer. And back in the
mm,
day, 15 years ago, freelancers weren't a thing. There were plenty of them out there, but people actually were questioned freelancers, like, well, why doesn't somebody have a real job versus freelancing? And what I really discovered back then is that there were people that had specialized skills that wanted to do that. And they didn't want to work for a big company. They wanted to do whatever they were good at.
mm,
And so I discovered freelancers, a long time ago. Today, everyone talks about fractional talent, but at the end of the day, that was a big discovery. And I was really good at finding great freelancers to work on my project teams. And then my
mm,
clients started to notice and said, "Oh, that Rob on your project team is great. Can you find us a Rob that does this?"
mm,
And so, really, one thing led to another. And my heart was always working for small businesses because, frankly, they're 99.9% of all businesses in most economies. And yeah, how do you help those small businesses grow? Because that's where new ideas sprout. And so I was kind of excited about the small entrepreneurship space. I was good at finding freelancers, and I just kind of put two and two together. And it's like, well, if I can help more small businesses hire great freelancers, it's good for everybody. All businesses grow. The freelance business grows, and the client business grows too. And so that's really what got me going about this. And then because I wanted to serve small clients, I knew I had to be efficient. So that led me to build a technology platform, which is what results resourcing is today. And we use the platform to make us efficient, but we basically meet the clients where they are and help them
yeah,
find the freelancers that can help them execute their vision. So
yeah.
that's
And
that's
and
the story.
and it's a great story. I love the insurance angle because before I went to record, I shared with you my dad was the CFO in the insurance for business for many years, and my life partner is actually an office admin for an insurance broker in the Greater Toronto area and has been there almost 40 years. So,
It's an
and
interesting
even I,
business.
and even I worked in as a programmer when I first came out of college many, many years ago. Even I worked in a life insurance business
Mm.
for a while. So I've been there too. So that's just, it's got so much facets and moving parts going on. I think it helps you develop a lot of skills. And I hate to say, it, you see a lot of these same issues in smaller companies, in larger companies all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, I was in commercial lines and
Yep,
actually it started years ago as a risk underwriter. But at the end of the day, it was, first of all, the world kind of doesn't go around without insurance. I mean, it's a really
that's true.
important vehicle, for so many different things. But on the commercial side, it was really remarkable to see what made a company successful and what
Mhm.
made a company not successful have losses. And so you really started to understand whether it's the leadership of the company
Yeah,
or what are the operational issues that a business was facing. And you just scale that down. And small businesses face the same things, just at a different scale than a big business is. But they're also more nimble and they can actually,
yeah.
enact action that fixes problems or moves the business ahead a lot more easily than a really large business. So those small businesses are nimble, and that's really what makes it fun.
Yeah, so true. Now, let's dive into small and medium businesses. I'm going to say right off the top, and I know my listeners are going to hate me, the bottleneck is you. The bottleneck is the business owner. Part of the problem is business owners and small businesses like to micromanage and they don't like to let everything go. Don't you think that's the problem, or am I missing something here?
No, I think you're right on the money. I think that what separates the clients who succeed are the ones that they're recognizing the value of time and that they need to be the CEO of their business, even if it's a
Mhm.
one-person business. That
Yeah,
it's that mentality that they're running a business and what is the best investment of my time to help my ideas move forward. Those are the ones that tend to be successful entrepreneurs and the people that are the chief doers or the chief penny pinchers, that don't invest, in things that will help their business grow. Those are really the ones that are stymied. And so I think
yeah,
the bottleneck is the business owner. And I think
yeah.
mindset is key.
And I think a lot of it is small businesses work for their business. And I'm choosing my words really carefully instead of working on their business. And
Hmm.
and you're nodding your head, so I think you know where I'm going with this is
Totally.
if they worked on their business, they'd be 10 times more successful. They'd work less and they'd be better off to scale in the long run.
Hmm. So true. I mean, we created this little tool to help people
Yeah.
understand the economic implications of how they use their time. And it starts with what's the value of an hour of your time? And it's a
Mhm.
vaguely worded question because we really want to see what people say. But no one ever says $10. And then we ask them, well, what is the primary thing that you do? And not that I'm really caring about that, for the uses of this tool, but what I want people to have is they're headed in the space of what value are they delivering to their clients or to the marketplace. Not what they do every day, but the value. And then it's how many hours a week do you work? And then what portion of that week do you
Yeah.
spend doing that thing of value? And of all the people that have ever taken our little ROI of time calculator tool, 43% is the average that business owners spend on their core business. And
Yeah.
57 is on the nuts and bolts of running their business. So to your point, it's they're working for their business in that 57%, not really working for the value they want to deliver their vision, to really help their clients grow. And that's the mind shift that I think is so important, that if people really think about how they invest that time, they're going to start working on their business, and that creates a whole new horizon of opportunity.
It sure does. I mean, I know I'm at the point now where honestly, I don't work about 40 hours a week, first of all. So, and people look at me and say, how do you do seven figures and work 40 hours a week? I said, very carefully. Number one. Number two is I don't do tasks I don't like doing. So that's the other rule. I can do accounting books all day long. But do I want to? No. So I get an accountant to do my books on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Do I want to deal with legal stuff and large contracts? So I have a rule in my business that says any contract over 5 figures goes out to my lawyer automatically. Don't even don't even care. Anything under gets a standard contract, but anything over five of 10 grand goes out to a lawyer. He deals with that. Do I want to deal with certain other aspects of my business? No, I get somebody to do that for me. And this is how you scale is
Mm.
by bringing other people in to free up your time. And I'll go one more for you. I hate shopping more than anybody. So if I'm going to a mall, despite our pre-show conversation, I'm going for a social reason, a movie, a dinner, to see friends. If I've got to shop, I'm probably jumping online and saying, ship it to me. And my partner is just the same. And everybody says, you guys are crazy. And we look at them and say, no, I just freed up 3 hours, not to mention the gas money I'm saving in this economic time we're in. And I just freed up all the time to do something more constructive,
Yeah.
right?
No, I totally agree. And when people think about freelancers, no one really thinks about
Yeah.
attorneys or accountants, but those were gig workers, contract workers. And what I
Mhm.
think is beautiful about those examples is both of those professions involve expertise, and they love to do what they do. That's their special sauce. And I think that that analogy goes to so many people that freelance today is they've got some special sauce, whether it's marketing or
Yeah.
it's business development or training, whatever it is. That's what people love to do, and they're really good at it. And so I think that you're accessing expertise when you outsource, in addition to saving time. So you do pay
Yeah.
for it, but you get expertise in exchange as well as freeing up your time. So it's really, a really practical thing to think about how do I find experts that love to do the stuff I don't love to do? It's
Yeah.
a win-win.
It's so true. And or the stuff you're not good at doing. That's the
Yeah.
other side of it.
Yeah.
Like I had a CTO in healthcare, and I was at a retirement gathering for a former manager who I adored. And my CTO got up and said, you know what made me successful over the years is hiring good people that I can delegate to that can run the show for me so I don't have to do it all. And he was referring to my manager who's retiring, but that's just one example. It's finding those right good people.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's no unicorn. No one can do everything
Yeah.
exceptionally well, and no one has the time. And so it's finding the people that give your business resiliency, as well as the advantage of having insights in different industries, different experiences. I mean, all those dynamics come together to actually produce a good outcome. So I
Yeah.
think
That's so
having a team that brings those perspectives together, is a really positive thing.
yeah, it's so true. And I would say once the light bulb goes on to this ideal, and once you accept it, because part of the problem with getting a small business owner to let go is it's their baby. And they
Yeah.
don't want to let go. I'll tell you that now. I have a good friend of mine, his wife and him, they own a very successful independent jewelry store in the Greater Toronto area. They do well. They do amazing well. But I keep saying, and they use gig workers or contract workers because in the jewelry business you don't do everything in house. You farm
Mm.
stuff out. But they also have some stuff they need to farm out more. And we were having a big discussion a couple of weeks about some marketing stuff. And his wife looked at me, who's a good friend of mine, and said, Rob, I don't have the time to do this, but I know I need to do it. And one of the things I always say is put it on the calendar. Number one, like just if you're going to attempt to do it yourself, and I use the word attempt, you got to get it on the calendar. Because if you go into the office every day and you are in the office 9 to 5 and you don't put it on the calendar, I promise you, it's not getting off your. I don't even call them to-do lists anymore. I call them task lists. It's not getting off that task list and being an active thing you're working on.
Yeah, and especially if it's not something you really want to do, you
Yes,
find
thank you.
you find ways not to do it. but we were kind of joking about our how color coded our calendars were before we got
Yeah, we were.
on live, and it's so true. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like I really believe that mapping out how you're going to spend time and kind of mentally holding yourself accountable for getting certain things done is really important. But you really kind of kick this off by saying that kind of try to do things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like with, I mean, there are plenty of examples, but marketing and social media in particular, unless you're good at it and doing it consistently, you really don't know if you're doing anything that produces any good effect. You don't know if you're
Mhm.
reaching your market. I mean, the algorithms change all the time. There's so much, it's such a dynamic environment that you really do need people that are full-time focused on being expert in social media. It's not one of those throwaway things that you can do it yourself because technically you can go and make a post. I mean, that doesn't mean that it was effective.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
like it's really understanding how do you get leverage your time and get value for the work that you're doing.
and how to work it out so your time is consistent. So
Hmm.
that's the other big thing. And many people don't get that in a lot of things. The more consistent you get, the easier it is to leverage and the easier things flow. So you got to get into that consistent routine. I think that's part of it.
No, and
Um,
I think
yeah,
marketing in particular, these platforms, they reward consistency.
yeah,
So if you're
they do.
not doing things consistently, the algorithms pick it up. They're always watching.
Yeah, tell me about it. Things have changed in a long way. And we have to mention I can't even mention marketing without mentioning two letters anymore, and they are AI. And that has just totally skewed, I'm sure, what you do. It has certainly skewed and in some respects makes my work easier, but often more difficult because, it depends what I'm doing, and it's just hard right now.
Yeah. Well, I think AI is obviously here to stay. And I think that it's been a boon to a lot of people who maybe aren't natural writers or researchers or whatever. It's access this global database of
Yeah.
information that can really save people time and money. But I think people are slowly but surely discovering the limitations. I mean, if you don't ask a prompt the right way, you're not going to get the right information. Or if everybody
Mhm.
asks somebody to write copy that with the exact same words, they're going to get exactly the same copy. And so they're seeing that, while it's a time saver, there needs to be the human back involved to really make it differentiated, to reflect the voice of the person. I mean,
Yes.
and people recognize when something was written by AI, that calling it AI slop. Oh, yeah, it's another AI slop. It's not an authentic post or email or
Mhm.
whatever it is. So I think that it's good, but it's not so good. To me, it's calling for the need for humans to really manage AI and good at using it, but always bringing in that human voice at the end. And that's really one of the things I see with the contractors that we're providing is they're becoming really good at using AI. So
Yeah.
the clients, they don't have to be good at it and really understanding how to use it to be efficient and then ultimately bringing in the voice of the brand that they're representing. So I think that if anything, AI is taking over the lower end of the task spectrum for
I
virtual
agree.
assistant kind of work and freeing up people to do more of the creativity, critical thinking kind of work that is necessary for a good result.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing I would be doing, just as you were mentioning the contractors that your firm provides, would be doing is if I was starting a small business, I would sit down with a contractor if I had no knowledge and said, okay, which of the tasks that I do are repetitive, like do an analysis and say, how can one of you contractors help me automate those tasks? I'd
Yes.
be doing that right off the top.
Yeah. No, I think that is something that is happening for sure. And, there's plenty of tools. I mean, CRMs would be probably my top
Yeah,
example. There's AI built into those tools, and
yeah.
so what a lot of small businesses come to us with as a problem is they will have invested in a subscription to this tool or that. It could be free, could be paid, but at the end
Yeah.
of the day, they have it set up to the minimum. They at least have their contacts in there or a few things, but they've never optimized it. And so
Mhm.
that's really something that contractors can do for you is they can take whatever systems you've bought and help you
Yeah,
maximize the benefit from those systems, make those automations, get those newsletters out or whatever workflows that you want. Contractors are really skillful at that. And the thing about AI is, I mean, I'm in New York City. On the subway, there's an ad right now that it basically says, push this button, an AI button, and then the next little statement is it's done. And it's just so crazy because you don't push a button and it's done.
yeah,
I mean, there's so
yeah.
much that goes into setting things up so workflow can be automated. So you can push a button and it's done. And I just think that AI, in a sense, feeds into the notion that everything's do it yourself. And
It's not.
yes, you can do things yourself, but it doesn't mean it's going to give you the outcome that you're really looking for. And that back to the expertise thing and whether it's a good
Yeah,
investment of your time.
there's a lot of things that do that. CRMs do that. I mean,
Mm,
one of the biggest CRMs out there is HubSpot. They
yep.
offer a free tier. A lot of people jump in the free tier and they say, "Yeah, but this isn't working." Well, because you haven't optimized it.
Exactly.
The other one that comes to mind is, and I spend a lot of time is WordPress. The WordPress software is open source. Anybody can set up a WordPress website. The question is, do you have the expertise to set it up properly so it converts properly? That's a
Mhm.
different ballgame. And a lot of people who DIY miss that between doing a DIY and doing something that's effective. And I think that's where the knowledge drop is really important, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of misleading because you feel this sense of success because you use the WordPress interface, for example, and you can actually create something that looks cool, looks nice. But it,
Yeah.
like you said, doesn't necessarily mean it gets you the result you want. And I find that a lot that business owners kind of know what they want, but they're kind of asking for the wrong things because they don't really know what it takes to achieve that result. And so I think that's another reason that, finding contractors that have the expertise
Yeah.
to hear what you want and understand what really needs to happen to deliver that result. That's the
Yeah.
expertise that you're really hiring when you hire a
Yeah, you're
contractor with a
you're you're
specialty in
hiring
something.
for that. You're hiring for that expertise. And that's what people need to realize before they come to a firm like yours. They're hiring for expertise. You're not
Mm,
hiring to pay somebody by the hour. Small business owners need to get out of that mentality. I know, like, and we'll get into it. I'm not sure how you quote your pricing, but I know when I quote pricing on jobs, I will never, never, never quote an hourly rate. And people will say to me all the time, I want somebody for an hour. And my response is, you're not the client for me. Move on.
mm.
But and I'm very, very upfront about that because, and I'll use an example. I walked into a salon yesterday, 2 days ago, and I've got terribly bad feet. I'm diabetic. So would I walk in for a manicure? And while I was there, I also walked in for a pedicure. I did both. And I was in the chair 35 minutes and I walked out and it was 65 bucks later, right? And somebody says $65 for 35 minutes. I said, no, 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 no. $65 to make it look good, to get it right. So my partner doesn't kill me. That is worth the money. Do you get what I'm saying? You're
I
paying
do.
for the result. You're not paying for the per hourly cost.
No, I totally agree. Now, we have a somewhat different approach, but I have the same philosophy. I mean, we
Okay.
named our company Results Resourcing because that's what we want to do. We want to
Yeah.
resource results.
Yeah.
But because small businesses come to us with so many different needs, that they really respond well to pricing tiers, which we do
Hmm.
have by hour. But at the end of the day, if someone wants basic VA work, it's our lowest rate. If they want somebody to
Yeah.
help them optimize their e-commerce site, it's a different rate. And because it's so fluid, I mean, rarely does a small business come with one finite little thing. Once they have a relationship with a team that they know, like, and trust, it's like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And
Hmm.
so I think, sometimes retainers or, bundles can be misleading because, you focus more on undefined value that's going to be delivered for that bundle, that
Yeah.
lump sum price. So I'm more about here's the different rate levels we have for different things, but we're going to scope what you need. And
Yeah.
we think this work's going to take about X number of hours, and that next,
Yeah.
next at different rate levels. And here's what we think it's going to the projected cost is. So we kind of do both. But at the end of the day, I
You're
think
basically doing the same thing, though.
yeah,
You're
people
saying, yeah,
do the reverse math. I mean, they look at
yeah,
whatever the dollar is and they go, well, so what does that mean? So we just try to be more transparent about it, but still keep people
yeah,
clear that they're getting
yeah.
the bookkeeper is not the same price as the online business manager. It's a different skill set, different thing. So
Or the
I think it's
marketer
a
or the
combination.
security expert. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, the net result is let's look at the value that's being delivered, not the cost
Yeah.
per hour or whatever, because
Agreed. Yeah.
that's you
Yeah.
really got to look at the expertise.
Yeah. And I think in today's world, people stop looking at the value often, and those are the people that are not successful. Like, how many times I've seen it, and it's even worse when you start scoping out a project and the business owner says, well, you should be able to do it in an hour. And I'm looking at the business owner and you're shaking your head because you know this deal. And
Yeah,
I'm looking at them and saying, my experience tells me it's a 4 to a 5 hour job. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you'll do it in an hour. And it's like, okay. And again, there's the problem, right? It's
yeah.
not the. So, how does your platform work? Like, I come to you, I say, okay, I need some VA work, I need a bookkeeper, and I need somebody to make some blog posts. How do you help me?
I mean, basically, it starts with a human conversation, really like we're having
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
And I want to establish rapport with the
Hmm.
business owner. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, they're an entrepreneur, we stand in the same shoes. And I really have them talk about their business and what they're trying to accomplish and why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as a result of that conversation, what we do is create an inquiry. This is what this client's all about. This is their website, all that kind of stuff. This is what they're asking for. I will have an opinion at this point after almost 12 years of doing this about, okay, if this is the result you want, I'm projecting, this is probably the approach we would take. And then what
Hmm.
I do is the chief matchmaker. I'm the person that's, talking to that client and saying I basically match them with a team, not an individual freelancer. I did that in the beginning and there's pros and cons, but ultimately for a small business owner, one person is not the answer because the one person is not going to have all the skills that they need in short, medium, and long term. And so I basically matched them with a team that I have found, vetted, and curated, and built a strategic relationship with because we want to do business the same way. So how I envision helping a client achieve their results is the same value proposition that the teams that I partner with have. Their contract, they're not W-2 to me, which I think is a strength. I mean, because ultimately they're entrepreneurs also, and they're
Yeah.
not thinking I'm an employee, a W-2 employee. They're thinking I'm getting paid for my results. And so it's the entrepreneurship mentality is really, really important in picking a team. But basically, I match them with a team. Then inevitably, the leader of that team meets with the client too to kind of make sure that the client likes them because you need to like and trust somebody to really have a
Hmm.
successful outsourcing relationship. And that inquiry gets refined into a proposal. Like, okay, these are the five things that you want right away. Here's how we'll get them done, how much time we think it'll take, what we need from you, because a lot of times we'll need information or data or access to different systems like a HubSpot. So we kind of get that all laid out. And then once that meeting of the minds occurs, then they actually buy the job on the platform. And we just basically, set them up as a client for them, set their job up for them with the details of what it is that they need. And, they pay a small fee to, activate the job and then they just get started with the freelance team. And we literally, and I'll tell you about this story in a minute, but because I've found and curated these freelance teams ahead of time, we literally can get started with a client we've met in 24 to 48 hours with a really
Wow.
skillful team. And all our
Hmm.
freelancers in the United States and Canada. But just real briefly, how I got to that capability was partially automation. But at one point, I think I mentioned before that in the early days of the company, I would match people with individual freelancers that I would find, vet,
Yeah.
and curate. And while I would find great people, if the client came to me and said, I need a bookkeeper, I'd find them a bookkeeper. But then the client would get that bookkeeping problem solved, and then they would need something totally different. They would need someone that understood SEO. Well, that's not the bookkeeper. But then I would have to go do another search, which meant another fee. And so the small business owner hadn't thought about what they needed next. And so I just realized that one person isn't a unicorn and has a finite amount of time. And so a client came to me for a PowerPoint project that they needed next the following week, and I couldn't deliver it. This was 5 years ago because I didn't have that freelance team of freelancers set up that could
Yep.
deliver PowerPoint. And he said to me, I need competent, reliable, nice, and I need it right now. And I just thought about, well, how would I deliver that? And the answer was a team that I'd pre-vetted. We'd agreed upon different job types, rate levels. I knew and trusted them. And that's just been an amazing winner because now I can confidently say, oh, I understand your needs, and this is the team that I think can
Yep.
handle it for you, and I can get them up and running in 24 to 48 hours after you've met them and agree that you like this team lead.
Yep.
It's really been a transformation in the business, and we're just
Mhm.
able to help a lot more people because once they trust is there, they keep coming back and going, oh, well, can you do this? Can you do this? So to me, the measure of success is whether we're growing the job. And I don't mean from the standpoint of billing more. I mean, we are billing more, but what the reason we're billing more is because they want more and they
Yeah,
and
the
they
growth.
like what they're getting. That's the
Yeah.
sign that we're succeeding with that client.
Yeah. Yeah. There's two things, power things that came out of mind in there. And correct me if I'm wrong. You said all your teams are in Canada and US, did you not?
Correct.
And
I
I
did.
think that's really important because I think when we start outsourcing overseas and people do it, they go to India, they go to the Philippines, the two big places. Language becomes an issue many times. And
Yeah.
the other thing that becomes an issue is they don't understand and communicate the way in their culture that North Americans do. So I
Right.
find that a problem. So I see that a lot.
Yeah.
And they're I don't think they're as tied into one company or one job as people in the States and Canada. So that's the first thing. The other power word, and you used it 3 or 4 times, and I was going to bring it up anyway, and you beat me to it, is the word trust. And the reason I bring that up is if you don't trust the team and they don't trust you, Elizabeth, and they don't trust your process, they'll never work with you. And
Right.
that's just the reality. So I think it's really key to have these meetings early on to build that trust level, to build that comfort level. I mean, I've got clients I know for years. I've got one client. I don't do it with many. They can call me any time of the day, even if I'm not working. I don't do that with everybody,
Right.
but I've got some that I've got really high levels of trust with, so they get a little more leeway too.
Yeah. No, I think those are two. Well, one is a real differentiator, the US and Canada. And
Yep, I
and I
do.
got there because many clients for more advanced work, for higher level work, they want somebody that understands the culture and how
Mm.
business is done here. In the work style is different, country to country. And no matter how smart somebody is and however well they speak and write English, it doesn't mean that they're have that natural instinct to behave a certain way that would be natural in North America. And I wouldn't be particularly effective, no matter how great my ideas were, if I was transplanted to India or Philippines. I mean, I don't know how those countries
Probably.
work. So it works both ways. And so I think there's amazing people around the world that are able to do a lot of work in the United States,
Mhm.
but at a certain level, they're just not going to be as successful in doing that work. And so all of our teams we do have some teams with offshore resources as part of their teams, but everybody is based in the United States and is
Yeah,
running all of the
I
work.
understand.
And so, but the majority of the people, are really have lived and worked in the United States for a great, or particularly in the United States for a lot of years. So I think that's been
Mhm.
that's been big. I mean, we're more expensive than offshore, but it's a different value proposition for sure. And then the trust thing is just that it always came through to me that, it's like, how do you establish trust with a platform where you just type in your requirements and people's profiles show up? I mean, how do you know if they're real or if they're really good I mean, there's no validation, they're just talking to technology. And that's where a lot of small businesses, they either hire from a neighbor they trust who may not know enough to really advise them on recommending a bookkeeper or a social media person, whatever, but they trust the neighbor. So that's the reason
Yeah.
they go that route, even if that freelancer isn't ideal. And then there's no help, for small businesses on these platforms, whether it's Fiverr or Upwork or, all the other ones that are
Yeah.
out there. And it's so labor intensive to try to figure out, if somebody on those platforms is who they say they are. And even for the freelancers, if you don't have ratings, you never get seen. So those platforms aren't ideal often for the freelancers either, to get found, to even get a shot at doing quality work.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that the heart to me was always to have a human interaction at the beginning, and that investment of time pays off because that's where trust starts. You're talking human to human. And one of my favorite things, going back to the AI thing, is a few years ago I read in a book about that Thomas L. Friedman wrote called "Thank You for Being Late: An Entrepreneur's Guide to 20th Century, 21st Century, whatever it is." But he basically talked about AI, which is artificial intelligence, AI, and he said for humans they also need intelligent assistance, which can only
Yes.
so the opposite. And that's the human is able to intelligently assist and bridge the gap that AI can present, in terms of humans' ability to manage technology
Yeah.
and the trajectory of information that is so unmanageable to some degree.
So true. What's your success rate with clients? We all go through that one or two client where we say, "Why did I take them?" You know what I mean? Like we've all done that. Um, I don't know about you, but I've fired a few clients in my time,
Yep.
just a few. Is your success rate pretty good, Elizabeth?
Yes, it is pretty good. And I think some of that is because of, a lot of our business is referral, or it's coming
Mm.
from relationships that, I've built over. Oops, I'm sorry, Ellie, my cat is
That's
getting
okay.
involved here, has an opinion on the subject, I guess. But
She's allowed to have an opinion. She's allowed
yeah,
to have an opinion because that's what,
cats, they have an opinion about everything.
yeah,
Um, but so I've already built trust with the people I'm networking with or with a client. So that, that's always a good starting point, which I think helps lead to success. Um, but at the end of the day, I mentioned earlier that there's kind of like three, I don't want to say oh, here she comes again.
it's okay.
Three categories: the CEO mindset, the DIY do it yourself
Yeah,
chief task doer, or basically the chief penny pitcher. And I'm not immortalizing those terms, but I mean that goes a long way to who is successful with us. And we tend to be quite successful with people that have a CEO mindset or are open to developing that.
yeah,
But people
yeah,
who want to do it themselves tend to be very controlling, not trusting, not handing off. Or there's people that worry about every single penny and aren't really thinking about making an investment. They're just thinking about, oh, I'm spending $10 or whatever, and they're
yeah,
constantly looking at things in terms of dollars instead of value. Because sometimes you deliver something, and again, social media marketing is a perfect example. It's a bit of a black box, but you have to give it time. And if you don't
mhm,
trust the people, then it might take 3 months for results to show, but you've got to trust the people
yeah.
to be comfortable with those 3 months. And
That's
so
so
I
true.
think our success rate differs depending on which kind of person we're
Yeah,
talking.
that's fair. I think part of the problem with people that hang on this stuff, truthfully, is they've been burned before. They
Yes.
go out there, they hire somebody. I just went through it with a client. I had a friend come to me and say, "I've got this good friend of mine who owns a who I knew of, believe it or not, and who owns an used auto dealership, and he specializes in high cars. And he needs some work done in his shop and in the marketing and in the technical side, and he said he's been burned before. Would you take care of him? I took care of him, and he was
Mm,
quite happy. But that's how, too, a lot of this talks about. You say your business is referral based. A lot of it's that way because the trust level
mm.
is higher when it's somebody you know, and
Yeah,
that's and I think we just get into that where you get burned once or twice and you become gun shy. I've been burned, and I just slouch it off and say, ah, that's I'm at the point now where that's just part of business, right? You just kind of
yeah,
say that it happens. It's cost doing business, move on. But a lot of people can't do that necessarily.
yeah, yeah. You do have to just let it go, or look
Yep.
at, what were some of the things that I thought or expected or assumed that didn't end up
Hmm.
being true. And and we actually get our fair number of people that have tried other solutions. And I never feel like I'm in a sales mode. It's like people need to pick the solution that in their
It's
core
right
works
for
for
them.
them. Because if
That works for them.
there's no talking people into things. People have to be comfortable with what they choose. And I've developed relationships with several offshore companies that sometimes I'm not the right fit, or I'm the
Yeah.
wrong price point, or I don't get into whether someone's expectations are realistic or not. I mean, it is what it is for them. So it's
It's
like if
their
I'm not
opinion.
the
It's
right
their
choice,
opinion.
yeah,
Yep.
it's like, okay, I'm not the right choice, but here's several people that I trust. Back to the trust
Yep.
idea. I've worked with these people before. I know they're gonna treat you well, and
Hmm.
you can trust them. Then you're up to you're responsible for your own actions, with whatever firm you choose, in terms of providing clarity and expectations and stuff like that. But
Yep.
sometimes that we make those referrals and we see that those clients come back in 9 months or
Yeah.
after trying other solutions. But
Oh,
it's like just help.
I've had that happen a million times. It happened recently. I had a client who 2 years ago told me I my agency was not the best one to manage his website. I said, okay. And 2 years later, he came back to me and said, my website's a mess. I said, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Fix it. And I'm like, okay. But then you also gotta, excuse me, factor in things like, is that going to happen again? Are they going to go away again? And,
Yeah.
that's a whole new conversation. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
But it happens all the time. And that's why I'm a big believer that unless it's really, really bad, and I went through a bad one last year that ended up legal. I mean,
Mm.
again, why I outsource, I just kind of say, okay, you're not going to play ball. Here you go. That one was bad, but generally as a rule, I generally hold on to most stuff because you just got to manage a relationship, and that's the important thing.
Well, I think that's so true. I love the word relationship because
Yeah.
when something doesn't go right, it's often because of miscommunication, misunderstanding, expectation, whatever it is. And I have found that for the most part, if you approach those problems as opportunities,
Hmm.
let's reset. And I get that this mistake got made, or we didn't understand this or that. But all right, how do we fix that? I mean, I just let's just own up to it. Like, okay, here's where we are. Now what do we do? I find that, with few exceptions, we're really able to resolve things. And
Yeah.
because we are constantly dealing in good faith, you know, focused on the result. Did we deliver the result? And even if there's some extenuating circumstances that the client didn't do this, that, or the other, I mean, I try to bring that to the table, but at the end of the day, I'm going to try to make it right.
Yep.
And I,
Me
I
too.
just find if you go in with that attitude, people don't get confrontational. They
Yeah.
become more open and frankly, sometimes more willing to accept a role they may have played in the misunderstanding. So we move on, and the relationship builds another layer of trust again, and we move
Yeah.
forward.
I agree, and I think one of the things that helps there is putting stuff down in writing.
Oh,
Honestly,
yes.
because then you don't get into the he said, she said. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but I know when I do discovery calls with clients, when I do meetings with clients, I record all those meetings. And
Hmm.
it's not just for my benefit. It's for and I'm very transparent about,
Yeah.
we're recording these calls. And the first thing I do when I'm done with the meeting is I upload it somewhere and send the client a link and say, by the way, here's the meeting we had, and here's a summary, AI generated, but
Yeah.
still, of what we talked about. And if you have any questions or you meant something else, let me know. And then you're being, again, it's transparent, it's documenting. And the more and more I see it, a lot of small businesses don't run their business. They are a business, but they don't run it like a business. And that's
Mhm.
part of the communication problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. There, what I find is a lot of people have no trouble building a grocery list or a
Yep.
list of things they're going to do on Saturday. But if you mention the word process to them, it's like, oh, I'm not a process person. And, to me, that's just kind of fundamental. I mean, it's like you need consistency in how things get done. And some of that's by writing it down. And you can even have a freelancer help you or AI help you build your process. I mean, I think process is exciting. I mean, core processes are what makes your business valuable. It's a business
Yep.
asset. This is how I deliver value to my clients. And I think that documenting, whether it's a call or whatever, is an important process. And it serves as a foundation for what's
Mhm.
going to happen next. So it's not about, you know, well, protecting yourself. I was going to use a CYA, but
You
it's
can use that, but it's about being fair to all the parties
yes.
involved. So I'll give an example of that. You reached out to me about the podcast and you said, "Hey, Rob, here's why I'd love to be on the show." And the first thing I said to you was, "Could you book a pre-podcast call? Let's chat." And I've had people come back and say, "I'm not doing one of those." And I say, "Great, you're not coming
You're
on
not
my
my
show.
people.
You're not my people." And they always say, "Why? What's my issue?" My issue is I have a process.
Yeah.
And my issue is I have that process for a reason. I've done that process based on experience. I think you know this. I'm well over 600 episodes. I think I'm at,
Yeah.
don't quote me, 644 or 645 at the time of this record, so
Amazing.
give or
Yeah.
take. Yeah. And I've gotten there and I have fine-tuned my processes as I go.
Yeah.
And that's the key, because if you don't have processes as a business, your business is a mess.
Hmm.
So, you, even for somebody that's doing a repair, what do? You take the item in, you log it into a system. You maybe take a picture of the item because you want to cover yourself. You ask the customer what they want. You get them a quote. You send them back a quote, which they have to sign off on. Sign off on. Why did my repair take so long? Did you sign off on the quote? Oh, I forgot it. Let me get to that. You know what I mean? And it goes
Yeah.
on from there. The point is, the process is what makes the business engine work.
That's right. And back to the subject of of outsourcing,
Yeah,
I have a
please.
philosophy about that too, that it starts with process.
Yes.
That really by building a process, you're outsourcing to process in the sense that
Mhm.
you're outsourcing to doing something consistently so it gets done with
Yeah.
quality the same way every time. And
Yeah.
if you have documented your process, and that doesn't mean every single thing like replenishing, the water supply and the water cooler. I mean, not you don't have to go that far, but the important things that touch clients, those are the things that should be documented. If you've done that, then you can buy tools and you can outsource to tools like a CRM.
Yes.
And because you can automate those processes. But so many people buy a tool and then try to retrofit their process to fit the tool,
Oh, what a
which I think
mistake.
it's so backwards. And if you really outsource the process, then to tools, then you've done a cost-effective thing to really scale your business. That's when you bring in the people. Because then you're using people for the brain power stuff, the creative stuff, not the
Yes.
repetitive stuff that process and tools can. So to me,
Agreed.
outsourcing is all of those things, not just
Yeah.
immediately to the people part, but process, tools, then people in that order.
I wholeheartedly agree, because you should be able to take your process, if it's any good, and dump it into any tool. And
Mm,
people don't realize that. So my classic example of that one was when I first started my agency. One of my mentors was an Infusionsoft Keep reseller. Actually, the number one Infusionsoft reseller in Canada. That he did that well.
Wow.
And I realized early on that the process that he taught to manage your CRM could be applied to anything. So I took it, applied it, and went and applied it to tools that were cheaper, actually.
Hmm.
But it's the same process.
Yeah.
And because once you get the process down, you can rinse and repeat too,
Yeah.
all the time. And then you can go to outsourcing, and then you're defined on what I'm outsourcing because the process is already there. If
Yeah.
the process isn't there, hiring outsourcing when everything is alphabet soup is a good way to describe it. It's not going to
Oh,
help you.
for sure. And you're going to be unhappy because the results weren't as you imagined them. But
Yep,
if it's clear, that rate of success rate is going to be just so much higher.
so true. Elizabeth, what an amazing conversation.
It's been
Thank you for your
wonderful.
time. Kindly.
Thank you.
I love this type of conversation. I'm betting I'm gonna have to have you back sometime. So I
Oh, I
think
would
you can
love
see that
that. Thank
coming.
you.
And I'd love to have you. I love your energy and I love who you are. And you can bring your cat back too. That's no problem.
I'll bring the
Um,
other one next time.
oh, they both can show up. I have a story about that. If somebody wants to find out more about results resourcing or about you, where's the best way to go?
I would say two things. Our website
Yeah.
is results resourcing, and it's easy to remember because that's what we do. We resource results. And it's resultsresourcing.net or .com. They'll both go to the same website. And then my LinkedIn would be another option. So it's Elizabeth Eiss, EISS, on LinkedIn. And, there's a way to access the website as well as book a meeting with me. And I love to just help people think about how outsourcing to freelancers could free them up so they could accomplish more. And so I would just love the opportunity to chat with people because I gain a lot from those calls because I better understand what business owners are looking for.
Yeah.
And so it's a no obligation call. And and if we can ultimately help them with outsourcing to our pre-vetted teams, that would be an awesome outcome as well, but not necessary as well.
Or grab your smartphone and scan the QR code on the screen.
Yeah,
That works
that's
too.
true too.
That
I
would
mean,
that would take.
I forgot that screen was up, but when I was talking about process tools and people, that's what we
Yeah.
call the delegation engine, because that
Yep.
is the engine for delegation if you think about process tools then people. So thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning the QR code.
Of course. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Really loved the conversation and have yourself a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much,
Thank
Rob. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to our sponsor, All-in-One WP Migration by ServeMask. Export your entire WordPress site in one click, import it anywhere. No server access needed, no command line, works with every hosting provider. Free on WordPress.org or extension at servemask.com. A very special thank you to Elizabeth for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.